We got up to Daf Sadi, and we've on the top line of Daf Sadi. And we're trying to prove Rav Chizda Shita that Yesh Kof B'Yad Chachamim Lakar Dovim Min HaTorah. Toshma. We learned in a Bryce. We started this yesterday. We know that if a Zar, a non-Kohen, eats Truma, then he has to compensate the Kohen and add to the Keren, to the principal, he has to add a Chomesh, another 20%. Achal Truma Tmeah. Mishalem Chulin Tahorim. Even though the Zar, the non-Kohen, ate Truma Tmeah, and not only that, he did it for Shogeg, he was unaware of the fact that it was Truma, he's got to replace the Truma Tmeah with Truma Tahora. With Chulin Tahora, and that becomes Truma. And he writes here that Hakavona l'tashlum shem shilem chulin tmeim b'mezid konsua. Im shilem b'shogig lo konsu. He says the following, that the brisa that we're about to learn is going to differentiate between shogeg and mezid. And right now, he's interpreting it as shogeg b'mezid in the tashlumin, when he reimbursed the Kohen for the truma that he ate. Was he giving him chulin tmeim b'mezid? Or was it the shogeg? So when it says shogeg, it means that if he returned to the Kohen truma tmeya, or chulin tmeim that become truma, as we said, then he's fine. Since he did it inadvertently, we don't punish him and we don't penalize him. But if, on the other hand, he deliberately returned to the Kohen chulin tmeim, when he's obligated to give chulin tahorim, so then he's worthy of a knas. And what that's going to mean, at least according to Rabbi Meir, is that we're going, or sumchus in the name of Rabbi Meir, we're going to nullify the truma in the tashlum. Again, if he deliberately returns to the Kohen chulin tmeim, which by virtue of his returning it to the Kohen now become truma, we are going to negate his truma. Because he deliberately compensated the Kohen shalom kidin, against the law, by giving the Kohen truma tmeim, meaning chulin that are tmeim that will become truma. However, although that's the way Rashi understood the sugya, most Rishonim disagree. They believe that our sugya is talking about the achila, not the payment and the compensation, but the actual achila of the truma. And ochal b'shogeg means that he ate the truma not knowing that it was truma. Ochal b'mezid means that we know that he was deliberate about eating the truma. Now, it's interesting that the Torah, in the case of shogeg, requires that you give compensation to the Kohen with that which is roy, it's fit to become kodesh. It can become true. Masha Enken, in the case of Mazid, he's not replacing the truma per se. He's just simply paying the Kohen for a financial loss. He can pay him with anything, even something that's not roy leos kodesh, namely subin. Subin means bran. Bran is the chaff of the grain. It cannot become truma. But nevertheless, he can use that as compensation, but paradoxically, only in the case of Mazid, because then he's a mazik, and he's paying tashlumei nezikin, which he can pay with subin. So let's read the Bryce. Ochal, if he ate the peros of truma tmei b'shogeg, is mishalim chulin tahorin. Shilem chulin tmeim, instead of fulfilling the halacha, the law, the requirement, and returning to the Kohen chulin tahorim, he returned chulin tmeim. Sumchas only mishum Rabbi Meir b'shogeg, if he didn't realize that these peros were tmeim, he thought they were tahorim, and he made a mistake and he paid them to the Kohen. His tashlum of tashlum, his payment, his compensation is valid, and he doesn't have to replace it. And now he's giving chulin tmeim to the Kohen, and it automatically becomes truma. But if, when he returned the peros to the Kohen, he deliberately knew that he was giving tmeim, is then he deserves a penalty. We're going to penalize him. Ein tashlumav tashlumin. He's going to have to take peros tahorim and be mafresh them, giving them to the Kohen. The Chachamim omer echad zeh v'echad zeh tashlumav tashlumin. B'chol mishalim chulin tahorim. In all cases, whether he's a Mazid or Chogi, he knew that they were tmeim, but he didn't know. Tashlumav tashlumin. However, he's going to have to replace it with another gift to the Kohen, and this time get it right, with chulin tahorim. Avinan bar. Now we have the following problem with this brisa. If he paid with peros, tmeim, ben Mazid, and the Rabbanan imposed a knas, and they determined, according to Rabbi Meir, that ein tashlumav tashlumin. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Tavala bracha. Why is Tavala bracha? Again, he was meant to pay the Kohen and compensate the Kohen with chulin tahorin. Instead, he gave chulin tmeim. Why does he deserve shishi or shlishi? The achal minei, he ate from the Kohen. Midei de lo chazi levi made to maso. Peros tmeim of truma, which cannot be eaten by the Kohen, even if the Kohen is tamei. The kameshalim midi the kachazi levi made to masa, and he paid up the Kohen with peros tmeim of chulin, and the Kohen during his state of tumah is allowed to eat chulin tmeim. So why does he deserve a knas of ein tashlum of tashlumin, according to Rabbi Meir, when in fact he's operating on behalf for the well-being of the Kohen. Because now the Kohen could take these peros tmeim and it's chazi lebi made tuma, so he can eat these peros while he's tummy. They're more valuable to him. Omar Rava, Amrile Kidi, others say it was a chacham by the name of Kidi. Chisure metzurachi. We have to add words to the brayso. Achal Trumat Meya Mishalem Koldu. He could give any amount for compensation, even chulin tmeya. As much as he wants to pay the Kohen, he'll pay the Kohen. Achal Truma Tahora Mishalem chulin tmeya Tahora. And the case that we're dealing with now is where he ate b'shogeg truma tahora. He pays the Kohen chulin tahora. But what happens if he went ahead v'shilem chulin tmeim? Sumchus Omer Mishum Rabbi Meir b'shogeg tashluma of tashlumin. B'mezid ain't tashluma of tashlumin. And there's no chalos same truma on the payros. They are chulin and chozrim libaleh. Now he has to go back and pay the Kohen payros tahorim. That's according to Rabbi Meir. In a case of Mason. So this smart Alex thinks he can get away with paying with Tmeim. Ein tashluma of tashlumin. In the case of Mazid, Rabbi Meir rules that we're going to completely nullify his hafrashas truma on the chulin, and he now has to give the Kohen tahorim. Chacham omrim bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid, if he pays back the Kohen, even with chulin tmeim, tashlumim tashlumim. The chal Hashem truma is chal, and the truma belongs to the Kohen. The chozer mishalem chulin torah. So now the Gemara asks for a hacha to midoraisa when he pays with peretz tmeim for the truma that he ate, tashlumav ma'al yahavi, on a doraisa level, even though they're tmeim, there is a chal Hashem truma, and he doesn't have to replace it with chulin tahorim. Dima Kaddish Bu Kohen Icha Tafsula Kedushin. Once this basket of fruits, of grains that are tmeim are given over to the Kohen can now be Mekadesh and Icha. Because now the Kohen is the rightful owner of these payros, and if he gives it to a woman for Kedushin, it's a valid Kedushin. V'yamar Achmana, V'yamar Rabbanan, meaning Rabbi Meir in the Brisa says that ain't tashlum of tashlumin. As a result, the Kohen does not acquire ownership over these payros tmeim. And he went ahead, the Kohen, and he was Makadosh and Isha, the Kasharinon, Eshes Ish Lialma. Now you're going to be matir a married woman to marry anyone else. Why? Because Rabbi Meir is going to say Eina Mekudeshes. And this is a proof for Rav Chizda that Yesh Kof B'Yad Chacham Lakar Dover Min HaTorah. So in the case of Mazid, the Kohen does not acquire ownership over the Tmeim, over the Paris Tmeim that were given to him. And when he was Makadosh and Isha, the Kedushin is Batel. Why? Because the Rabbanan decided that that's not a valid Kedushin. So the Gemara says, no. That's not what Rabbi Meir had in mind. When Rabbi Meir said Ein Tashlum Tashlumin, he didn't mean to negate the ownership of the Kohen over the Truma. My Ein Tashlum Tashlumin, that's all Rabbi Meir meant, was that he has not fulfilled his obligation vis-a-vis the Kohen. He's going to have to go back and pay the Kohen Peros Chulin Tahorin. So the Gemara says, "Hihachi sumchus hainu rabbanon." Where's the machlokus between the rabbanon and sumchus in the name of Rabbi Meir? Even the rabbanon who disagreed with sumchus in the name of Rabbi Meir, they agree that the tashlumin is chal, but now he has to replace it. And now you're telling me that even Rabbi Meir, as quoted by sumchus, also will validate the truma, just that he has to replace it with chulin tahorin. Now it comes out that Rabbi Meir's sheet is identical to that of the Chachamim. Where's the machlokas? More answers Omer of Acham. Brother of Ika Konsu Shogigot to Mazid Ika Benayim. According to Rabbi Meir, as quoted by Sumchus, if he paid b'mezid and he gave chulin, Paris of chulin tmeim, then he's worthy of a knas. But that's only in a case where he was deliberate and b'mezid he paid with Paris tmeim. So the Rabbanan penalized him, and he's going to have to be mafresh a second time around, and this time get it right with Peros chulin tahorin. And all this applies in the case of a mezid. But if he pays b'shogeg, then we don't say that he's got to replace it. So that's according to Rabbi Meir. Where do the Chacham disagree? Well, the das Chachamim beinim shilein b'shogeg ubeinim shilein b'mezid kansu l'shalim shenis l'kohen peres chulin tahorin. So as it comes out, in the new understanding of this machlokes, the Rabbanan become the more machmirim. I mean, it's exactly a 180-degree turnabout from what we said at the beginning of the sugya. And the knas that was imposed by the Chachamim on the Ochel Truma is applicable according to the Chachamim bein b'mezid bein b'shogeg, and that's called konsu shogeg otu mezid. The Rabbanan are saying that if we don't impose this penalty in the case of shogeg, then even in the case of Mason, he's going to claim I was a shogeg. He'll fabricate a whole story. So therefore, once we institute this knas, we have to go all the way in every situation, every summer. Even in the case of shogeg, where he doesn't deserve a knas, we're going to impose a knas. And that's called kansinon shogeg otumezi. Whereas Rabbi Meir holds that only in a case of mezid, then we institute a knas. And we're going to force him to replace these payros of chulin tahorim. But if he had paid b'shogeg, there's no such thing. In any event, according to the final maskana, just to summarize, kuliyamalo pligi, everyone agrees that they did not negate his truma. And if the Kohen received the payros tmeim, and he went and he was mekadesh in Icha, not knowing that they were tmeim, the kedushin is valid. Because both Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim agreed to the principle that despite the fact that he shouldn't have offered the Kohen as a replacement for the truma that he ate a tmeim, nevertheless, when he gives tmeim, we recognize that as truma. However, there is such a thing called a knas, that even though the truma is chal, and the Kohen, having received the truma, is now the proud owner of the truma, but nevertheless, we impose upon the bailim an obligation to replace the truma that they ate with peiros tahorim. And under what circumstances does this knas apply? That's the subject of the debate between Rabbi Meir and the Chacham. The Chacham want to go straight across the board. And under all circumstances, would the Zar ha'ochel truma be required to replace the truma, the chulin tmeim the truma tmeim that he ate? Whereas Rabbi Meir says no. We're only going to apply the knas in the case of mezid. The Rabbanan will say kansinon shogegotu mezid, that if you institute a knas and you limit it to a case of mezid, it's not going to hold teeth. It's not really going to do the job, because the guy is going to be amazing and he'll claim, no, I was a shogeg. So therefore, the Rabbanan assume straight across the board, we have to determine and establish a chiyuv to replace that truma that he ate with chulin tahorim. Because Rabbi Meir limits it to the case of mezid. So just to be mashal in what we started discussing, I wanted to read to you some notes here from the Masechet. He writes, Kohen shekibel truma, uba adam acher v'ochla, chayav l'shalem lakohen es shir hatruma b'tosefes chomesh. And again, there's a machlokes about whether it's milah bar or whether it's bili, whether it's let's say if it's worth 5, you pay milah bar. So if you ate 4, you would pay 5. And there are other shitos as well. But in any event, that's not really relevant to us now. All this is derived from the parsha in Vayikra Chav Beis. V'ish ki yochal kodesh b'shkaga v'yasaf chamishiso alav v'nasan lakohen es hakodesh. And Chazal interpreted to mean that a person who eats truma has to give payros of chulin to the Kohen, keneged masha ochal, the nasan lakohen es hakodesh, and he gives the Kohen davar haroy lios kodesh, the payros of chulin, and they become truma. Now we have the brisa, which records a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chacham. And we start with the sheet of Rabbi Meir. Ochal b'shogeg truma tmeya b'shalim chulin tahor. Nobody denies that. That's universally accepted. Now, what happens in an event that the Israel doesn't live up to his responsibility? Shilem chulin tmeya. If he pays chulin tmeim b'shogeg, he thought that he was paying with peros tahor, and he made an honest to goodness mistake, and instead he was paying with tmeim. Is tashluma of tashlumin. He doesn't have a penalty, and we don't require that he replace that truma with tahor. But b'mezid, if he knew that these peros that he was giving to the Kohen as compensation were tmeim, and deliberately he gave them, then he's subject to a knas, and ain't tashluma of tashlumin. He's going to have to now pay with peros tahorim. Chachamim omrim, however, according to the Chachamim, then echad zeh v'echad zeh tashluma of tashlumin v'chozer mishalim chulin tahor. We're not going to undermine, even in the case of Masechet, his hafrasha. He doesn't have to, shall we say, we don't negate the status of the peros tmeim as truma. They are truma. But chozer mishalim chulin tahor. So the Gemara now is going to ask, well, according to Rabbi Meir, the way you're presenting it, yesh koch biad chacham laker min haTorah, which would mean that let's say in a case where he, the Yisrael, paid with peros tmeim b'mezid, is ein tashluma of tashlumin, and now we're going to negate the ownership of the Kohen on this truma because it's no longer truma. What would happen if in the meantime, he was Mekadesh and Isha with that truma? And the Gemara says, "Vavinan ba b'mezid ein tashlum of tashlumin is tavel bracha." After all, now he's giving him something that he can eat b'tumaso, and chisuri metzur v'achi ktani ochal b'shogeg truma tmeya b'shalim lakoin koldu. Whatever he wants to give, he gives, even from peros chulin tmeya. But ochal b'shogeg truma tahora b'shalim chulin tahora. He's got to replace it with chulin tahora. Shilem, if he pays with chulin tmeya, then sumchas omri truma Rabbi Meir b'shogeg tashlum of tashlumin. If he reimbursed the Kohen with peros tmeya b'shogeg, is according to Rabbi Meir, we validate the tashlumin. But if b'mezid he paid chulin tmeim to replace chulin truma tahora, then ain't tashlum of tashlumin, and there's no shame truma. The Chachamim omrim bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid tashlum of tashlum v'chol mishan chulin tahora. So the Gemara asks a kasha now on Rabbi Meir. Hacha midaraisa tashlum of tashlumin ma'al yahavi v'kadosh b'uisha tafsu b'kedushin is amru rabbanon ein tashlum of tashlumin. So in the case where he paid back the Masechet with peros tmeim, now you're going to negate the kedushin of the Kohen because we're going to cancel the Yisrael, the Masechet, and we're going to negate and nullify the truma. It's no longer Mom and Kohen, and now we're going to let an Ashes each go hefker, so to speak. And Amar Rabbanan ein tashlum teshva kasharin and Ashes ish li'alma. So now the Gemara says, no, Rabbi Meir did not mean Ein Tashlum of Tashlum Legamre. What does it mean? Ein Tashlum of Tashlum? The Gemara Rabbi Meir to boil a heder Shilume Chulin Taorin. When he pays with Chulin Tmeim, then the Shem Truma is Chal, and the Kohen is the proud owner of that Truma. However, we're going to cancel and penalize the Yisrael, then now he's going to have to get a second round of compensation, and this time with Chulin Tahorin. So where is the Machlok between Sukkos and Rabbanan? Omer of Acha Breder of Ika. On the contrary, it's the Rabbanan who are Machmir, and they hold Kansu Shogegat of Mezid. The Das Sumchus b'Shem Rabbi Meir Dafka im Shilein b'Mezid b'Peros Chulin Tmeim Kansu l'Shalim Shenis Peros Chulin Toren Abel im Shilein b'Shogeg Lo L'Das Chachamim Bein im Shilein b'Shogeg Bein im Shilein b'Mezid Kansu l'Shalim Shenis l'Kohen Peros Chulin Toren. And then, so that's where we're going to stop here on Daf Tzadi Amid Aleph, and we're up to Tashma Dam Shenitma. And that is 3 lines before the wide lines on the end of the line. Okay, thank you very much.